you're safe. No one's calling the cops. This is the one time that you can be a thief and not get arrested for it. When you're an MSP business owner wanting to find new clients and make more money, new ideas that actually work for other MSPs are like gold dust. But with permission, please go ahead and steal the smart ideas you're about to hear from my guest this week. In this interview, you'll learn 3 things: what his special tactic is, how it makes finding clients easier, and how you can do a version of this in your MSP.
Hi, my name is Omar Romero, and I'm the owner of an MSP based in beautiful Trinidad and Tobago.
And congratulations, because after 5 years of the podcast, you are the first ever person, the first ever guest from Trinidad and Tobago to appear on the podcast. So congratulations and thank you so much. You and I have actually been talking for what feels like a year, I think, and it's taken quite a time to get our calendars together. And I'm so excited to get you on the show, primarily because you are using a marketing tactic that I don't think we've ever spoken about before. And I'm going to give it the name of backdoor marketing. I don't think you ever set out to do it when you did it, and obviously you're going to describe what you've done and the results you've had from it, but I'm calling it backdoor marketing because you started marketing to businesses without them even realizing they were being marketed to, and we're going to explain the whole thing here and lay out what you're doing. Let's first of all hear a little bit of your story. So how did you get into tech and how did you end up owning an MSP?
Yeah, so my career started here in Trinidad and Tobago, and I think throughout the years I've worked in different areas of IT. So I started out working for a vendor on application support, a payroll application vendor. And then I started working for the bank where I did some programming. And sometime around 2005, I actually moved to the UK. I know we were talking, and I lived in London at the time working for one of the largest IT firms there. But that was as a database analyst. And I had always had the idea of doing IT and doing things my own way and having my own thing. I never really crystallized what that would look like. And when I left the UK, I moved to New York City, and I was doing an MBA. And a professor in the program at the time had introduced me to someone in New York who owned MSP. And that was my first experience of understanding what an MSP is or what an MSP does. And for me, the name of the company was Greenhouse IT, and they were very generous in sharing their time and knowledge and explaining all those things. And it just ticked so many of the boxes for me because I just saw the beauty of managed services and how you can really structure things and help so many people. And it was just a different way of doing IT traditionally to what I was accustomed to. So after I finished my MBA, I moved back to Trinidad and Tobago and started my company, Rose IT Services Limited, and we've been here providing MSP services ever since.
Amazing. You've lived everywhere. It's like you've lived in all the cool cities, which is really cool. London, New York, Trinidad and Tobago. It doesn't get any better than those 3, right? And I bet the weather where you are is a lot better today than the weather is here, where it's kind of dark and miserable and horrible outside. Yeah, it probably is. I think that's the one thing we can guarantee. So you've got your MSP. I know you're quite successful at what you do, but you started a second business. So briefly tell us a little bit about what that business does. And this, by the way, is a critical part of the story.
Right. So one of these sectors we provide services for is for credit unions here in Trinidad and Tobago and the region. And that's who we had a MSP client who we are still their IT provider. And sometime around 2013, all credit unions, and this is not just in Trinidad, but this is across the world, they have to do something called an annual general meeting once a year, which is a public event where they invite all their members or clients to attend. And part of that annual general meeting is there's an election that happens. So years ago, that used to be like physical ballots by hand, and it was a process that took hours to finish. And sometime around 2013, that our client asked us, they had an electronic ballot counting system, and they asked if they could help us run the ballot counting system. So that was like a high-speed scanner on a desk, and we would have pre-printed ballots, and people would shade, and we basically reduced that process from like 4 hours to like probably like 30 minutes, right? So what happened is that a lot of other credit unions saw us doing it and reached out to us to do that. So apart from the MSP business, this was like a service we provided, a niche service, which we built out to pre-printing all the ballots and managing that election process. And we had, we would give them the returning officer, everything packaged for an election. And then in 2020, we had gotten pretty popular in the space doing that. And in 2020, COVID happened, right? And these events can be over 1,000 people at a physical venue, and it has to happen. And a lot of our clients reach out to us to try to figure out, how do we have this event that we need to have, and how do we move that online? So these events, the challenge of these is these are not like your regular webinars or Zoom or anything like that. These are highly, highly interactive. These are hundreds of people who need to be heard, who need to vote, who need to, vote on motions, who need to do an election for board and committees. And we just fell in a really good space because we were by design technical people, but we also understood that credit union space. And we developed a template of how to run those virtual meetings online. That grew into hybrid meetings, and it became a subsidiary side business where we have our MSP business now, but we also have our business that does large virtual and hybrid events.
Got it. So you were telling me just before the interview, you can have up to 1,000 people taking part in essentially a massive video call.
Well, we actually have capacity for 100,000 people on a Zoom.
Oh, wow.
We have the largest we've registered is we probably just under 4,000 people on our live Zoom. But and this is, so we have it's very, very involved, and you have a lot of technical elements in the background. Everyone has to participate and feel like they're accommodated. So it's it's very demanding.
Yeah. So that's a very unique business. I have to say that's a very cool side business, and wonderful to hear how actually COVID for you was the making of that business. It allowed you to pivot and change and invent something new, which is really cool. Now, obviously, what we're talking about here today is backdoor marketing, which is where we're selling to people and we're influencing them to choose you as an MSP without them realizing. And the reason I wanted you to explain that second business is because, of course, that second business is where the backdoor marketing happens. So tell us your experience of what has happened as you started setting up more clients and onboarding more clients onto your video platform. How has that actually generated work for your MSP?
Well, right. So because those events are very, very involved, there's registration, there's like a month of work that happens before the actual day of the event. And within that month, there's a lot of technical pieces that have to happen. I mean, we have to work with the client on what goes on their website. We have to do content, email marketing blasts. We have to do, we may have to look at what happens on the internet on site. So there are a lot of technology pieces. And through that, we either work alongside the client's IT department, or maybe they don't have an IT department and we have to step in. So that gave us, a really good understanding of where these clients who were working with us on the virtual services were on the IT spectrum. And we also, that gave our clients understanding of how we worked, because some of our resources from the MSP side do help out on the virtual side. So because of that, it was a good conversation if we executed really well on the virtual to say, hey, by the way, do you know we also offer these MSP services that may be of value to you? And that has worked really well, because it's not like we're coming in cold, right? It's someone we're familiar with, someone who knows us, someone we've executed for. And we found that there are a lot of people who would be happy to work with us on a more permanent basis as an MSP provider.
Got it. So essentially, if I was to summarize that, because what I want is for everyone listening this or watching this on YouTube to not think, okay, it's about having a unique business. It's something extra. And we'll talk about what any MSP could do in a second. But essentially, you're building a relationship with people who have bought something else from you. And as you're building that relationship, it allows you to influence them and talk to them about the technical problems that you're finding in their business, which is obviously a natural in for you to talk about the solutions. Have I got that right? Is that correct?
Yeah, and I don't even think it's that intentional, because actually what a weird thing started happening in that our MSP clients started they knew us as technology providers. That's what most people know us as bread and butter. But then our virtual clients know us as virtual meeting providers. And none of these people know we do the other thing, right? So it was naturally like after we execute the event, I would just call and say, hey, I'd just like to pop by, just share with you some of the other things we do. And it's usually very, very informal. We usually just having a chat, and I would just say, hey, did you know we provide IT services, we provide cybersecurity services, we can do penetration testing, vulnerability assessment, all these things. And usually it's like, I had no idea you guys did this because this is actually a current requirement for us. And then that's where that conversation would start. So it's really, really natural. I mean, really, we just know that we have a solution that that can solve problems for them.
Yeah.
And for them, it's like they know how we work. So it's just a natural fit.
Exactly. So the actual sales conversation, as you say, is natural, but you're leveraging the existing relationship. And I think that's the key part of this. So here's a question for you, Omar. If you ran another MSP, or you were advising another MSP and they don't have a side business, because obviously I can imagine you're a very busy person with two big businesses to run, as much as I'm sure you've got a fantastic team. But if you were advising another MSP who didn't have a side business and didn't want a side business, how can you take that principle of working with someone on something else before you sell them managed services? What would you recommend they do?
Well, I think what I would say is that for us in this region, the concept of an MSP is not very well understood. And I don't know if it's like that commonly across the world. I wouldn't be able to say. But usually people just see us as an IT company. So they would come to us for different things. And sometimes we do things on a project basis. So they may say, we want to do an Office 365 implementation, and we may work with the client on that. But then sometimes you do something like that for a client and you execute it, and the client has worked with you on a project basis, and it becomes an easy conversation if you can execute that really well to say, hey, we did this for you and we can actually support you on a more permanent basis. Did you know we do these other things, and this is how we work, and this is what works for other clients who have done an Office 365 implementation. And then that is where the conversation can become really natural, because I think obviously what underpins it is you have to execute on that thing you're doing so that the client has had a good experience working with you. And then that opens the conversation for a more fixed permanent relationship.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So a lot of MSPs, I think, well, to answer your question about around the world, do people understand what MSPs are? I think, yes, it's probably, there is a greater understanding of it, but still you look at the average decision maker, so the average business owner or manager, and they don't know what the term MSP is. They don't know what a managed service provider is. I think a lot of people still do think of their IT company as just an IT company.
Yeah, that's just the IT company. You do the IT, you do the websites, yeah. you do the social, you do everything that involves a computer, right? Exactly,
right. And actually that in itself can be a double-edged sword, because it's good because you just mentioned websites. Like I've never understood why most MSPs don't sell websites, because ordinary business owners see you as the technical people, and even though websites is a marketing thing, if they're thinking, oh, well, I trust you with my IT, I trust you with this, you can do my website. And I've always thought that most MSPs should have a website building partner that builds websites for them to sell. Yeah. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, so I think a lot of MSPs will treat project work as just something they do in order to onboard a new monthly recurring revenue client, and actually what you're saying here is go and do the project work to build a relationship, and then a more deeper engagement, a monthly commitment, monthly recurring revenue engagement will come off the back of that, which I think is absolutely spot on. So Omar, thank you so much. That's such a great idea. It's awesome to hear that you've got two very good companies going there, and there's a little piece of me that hears that you can put 100,000 people onto a call, and I'm thinking, right, there's 40,000 MSPs in the world. If I could get 2 or 3 people from each of those MSPs on a call simultaneously, I want to test the limits of your system. You say you've done 4,000. Do you reckon you're ever going to get past 4,000 or 5,000 on a simultaneous call?
Well, yeah. I mean, so we work closely with Zoom actually, and so that's how like they have expanded the capacity. It used to be 3,000, it went up to 6,000, and I think where we want to go with that is really to curate these large events. And I often ask people, is there something you want to tell the world, right? If there is there a message you want to get out to the world, and you have this open online event. We do hybrid events as well, where everything is happening at a venue, but it's also open to online. And our job is really to get as many people and engage as many people to come onto your event and have a more professional experience than anything that is out there. It's a Zoom product that they sell, so obviously there is a market for it. And this is actually a lot more fun than MSP stuff, because you can, like we have ideas to do like large. We could do a music concert online. We could do like really creative and crazy things. And sometimes people come to us with ideas, and we just have to figure out how to make it happen. So,
I love that.
That's the fun side of it.
Yeah, I bet. I can see why that's a lot more interesting than setting up new users and resetting passwords. Omar, thank you very much for your time. Just tell us, for those MSPs that have been listening to this or watching you on YouTube, what's the best way for them to just find out a little bit more and perhaps even connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn. I usually post everything we do there. Just find me, Omar Romero. My website is www.rose-it.com, rose-it.com. And we are on social media. Our company is on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook at Rose ITSL.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Edge.